People often say that red carpets are all glitter, noise, and flashes. But that night felt different, like something real was about to happen, something no one had planned. Sandra stepped out of the car first, smoothing the soft fabric of her dress as the cool night air brushed against her shoulders. The lights were bright, but she looked strangely unsure, almost as if the world around her had suddenly become too loud. She forced a smile, the kind actors learn to wear even on their hardest days, but it didn't reach her eyes. Keanu followed right behind her, noticing the way she hesitated before taking her first steps onto the carpet. He watched her for a moment, the way she held her breath, the slight tremor in her fingers, and understood instantly that something wasn't right. They had known each other long enough for him to recognize the difference between nerves and something deeper. The paparazzi crowd surged forward, shouting her name. Normally, Sandra handled this with grace, but tonight the noise hit her like a wave. A quick flash blinded her, and for a second she froze, unable to move. Memories of a difficult week, a personal call she hadn't told anyone about, and a hurtful headline still echoing online, all of it crashed into her at once. Keanu saw her falter. He stepped closer just slightly, as if silently offering her a shield. He didn't touch her yet. He just angled his body in a way that blocked the harshest lights and let her breathe. She turned her head toward him, her eyes soft with unspoken thanks. But then someone shouted something sharp, invasive, and far too personal. Sandra's smile collapsed. Her breath caught in her throat, and she blinked rapidly, fighting the sting rising in her eyes. Keanu's expression changed instantly, calm turning into something fierce but controlled. He looked toward the photographer who had spoken, his gaze steady, unwavering, and protective in a way that made even the loudest voices fall quiet. The energy on the carpet shifted. People sensed something was happening, something raw and genuine, unfolding right in front of them. Sandra swallowed hard, trying to keep her composure. Keanu took a half step closer in response, lowering his voice just enough for only her to hear. "You're okay," he murmured. "I'm right here." She nodded, but her lower lip trembled. And when another flash went off, this time inches away, she stumbled, losing her balance for a split second. Keanu reached out instinctively. And in that exact instant, the carpet, the cameras, the noise, everything exploded into a moment no one expected. And before anyone understood what was happening, something happened between them that made every camera turn at once. End of part 1. Let me know when you want part 2 with deeper emotion, stronger suspense, and an even more powerful cliffhanger. A red carpet moment between Keanu and Sandra. Paparazzi didn't expect this. Sandra felt her heels slip for just a heartbeat, but to her it felt like the ground had disappeared. The pressure, the noise, the sting of that shouted question, it all collided, and she leaned forward unintentionally. Before she could even gasp, Keanu's arm moved with quiet certainty, steadying her instantly. His hand landed gently at her waist, not dramatic, not staged, just enough support to remind her she wasn't alone. The cameras exploded with flashes as if the world had been waiting for that one small moment of connection. The carpet fell silent for a breath, and Sandra felt the weight of hundreds of eyes turn toward them. She looked up at him, eyes shimmering with embarrassment, gratitude, and something even deeper she didn't dare name. Keanu didn't smile. He didn't pose. He simply held her securely, grounding her with the kind of calm she had always admired in him. In his eyes, she saw neither judgment nor surprise, only a quiet understanding. "Breathe," he whispered, barely moving his lips. And she did. For the first time that evening, she actually breathed. But the paparazzi, sensing a story, began shouting louder. "Keanu, what happened? Sandra, are you crying? Are you two together tonight?" Those last words hit her like a shock. Her heart gave a painful twist. She had been trying so hard to stay composed, but now she felt exposed, misread, and painfully vulnerable. The spotlight that once made her feel confident now made her feel almost transparent. Keanu glanced at her again, noticing the way her shoulders tensed. A flicker of protectiveness crossed his face, stronger than before. "Sandra," he murmured softly, "look at me, not them." Slowly, she shifted her gaze upward. His expression was steady and almost strangely peaceful, like he was guiding her out of a storm without raising his voice. But beneath that calm, she could sense a quiet fire building, one he rarely showed publicly. Another reporter called out a question that cut even deeper, something cruel disguised as curiosity. Sandra's jaw tightened, her breath shaking. She looked away, her composure cracking again. And then Keanu did something unexpected. He stepped in front of her. Not aggressively, not dramatically, just enough so that her body disappeared behind his, shielded from the worst of the flashes and the questions. The crowd reacted instantly, gasps, whispers, shifting energy, as they realized this wasn't a posed moment. It was instinct, pure instinct. Sandra pressed a hand softly to her chest, overwhelmed by the gesture. Keanu kept his shoulders squared, his stance calm but unmovable. It was then, in the middle of that chaos, that he made a choice, one that no one, not even Sandra, saw coming. And when he turned back toward her, something in his eyes made her heart stop completely. End of part 2. Say the word and I'll continue with part 3, keeping the emotional depth, suspense, and cinematic feel strong. A red carpet moment between Keanu and Sandra. Paparazzi didn't expect this. For a moment, Sandra stood behind Keanu, hidden from the bright wall of lights. She could hear the muffled chaos of reporters calling out, but it all felt distant, like she was underwater, fighting to steady her breath. Keanu's presence in front of her was like a barrier she never expected, a quiet act of courage that reached deeper than words. She touched her fingertips lightly to the back of his jacket, almost without thinking. The familiar fabric grounded her. It reminded her of all the moments he had shown up in her life, not loudly, not dramatically, but with that same steady warmth. This time, though, it felt different. He hadn't stepped forward for publicity. He stepped forward because he saw her breaking. Keanu turned his head slightly, just enough to meet her eyes over his shoulder. "You're safe," he said quietly, the words firm yet gentle. "I won't let them push you tonight." Sandra felt her throat tighten again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was emotion. She nodded, even though she knew he could sense her trembling. He had always been unusually good at reading her, noticing every small shift before anyone else did. But the crowd wasn't finished. A reporter shouted something sharper, a question about her private life, one she had been avoiding for weeks. The words slammed into her like cold wind. Her breath hitched, and she instinctively stepped back. Keanu reacted instantly. He turned around fully and closed the distance between them. "Sandra," he said softly, but with a firmness that made her lift her head. "Look at me." The carpet noise dulled again, as if the world leaned in to listen. She met his eyes, and for the first time that night, she didn't feel like she was falling apart. His gaze wasn't dramatic, wasn't intense for show, it was honest. He was anchoring her in a moment where she could have easily disappeared. "You don't have to face them alone," he whispered. The words hit her harder than she expected. Her breath wavered, her eyes burning slightly, and she swallowed as a tiny, involuntary tear threatened to escape. She blinked it away quickly, but Keanu noticed. He always noticed. Before she could step back or hide, he lifted a hand, slowly, respectfully, and brushed a single strand of hair away from her face. The touch was delicate, almost protective, and that's when it happened. A burst of camera shutters exploded around them, rapid, frantic, like fireworks going off in every direction. Paparazzi surged forward, voices rising in disbelief and shock. "Did he just—" "Keanu, look this way." "Sandra, how do you feel?" Sandra flinched at the noise, but Keanu didn't move away. His hand remained near her face, not touching anymore, just hovering, ready if she needed him again. Sandra felt something shift inside her. Not romance, not some dramatic fairy tale moment, just a deep, powerful recognition that someone genuinely cared. Someone saw her as a human being, not a headline. But just as she found her footing again, a new voice cut through the crowd. A voice neither of them expected. It wasn't a reporter. It wasn't a fan. It was someone calling Sandra's name from the far end of the carpet, someone whose presence instantly changed the atmosphere. Sandra froze. Keanu's eyes narrowed slightly, sensing her reaction. And as the figure stepped through the crowd toward them, Sandra's heart dropped. Because that person carried the very news she wasn't ready to face tonight. Sandra's chest tightened the second she recognized the voice. It was a name she didn't expect to hear tonight, not here, not in front of hundreds of cameras. Her body stiffened as a familiar figure pushed through the crowd. Her longtime publicist, Marielle, the one who usually shielded her from chaos, but tonight, her expression carried something else entirely. Marielle looked worried, not stressed, not rushed, worried, and that alone made Sandra's heartbeat grow uneven. Keanu noticed the shift instantly. The warmth in his eyes dimmed with alertness, his posture straightening slightly, as if preparing for something he didn't yet understand. He stepped subtly closer to Sandra, their shoulders nearly touching. She didn't move away. She couldn't. Marielle reached them, breathless, holding her phone tightly in one hand. "Sandra," she whispered, trying not to be heard by the surrounding press. "We need to talk, it's important." Sandra felt her stomach drop. The timing was painfully cruel. "Marielle, not now," she murmured, her voice fragile. "Please." Keanu glanced between them, reading the tension in seconds. He didn't interrupt. He simply stood ready, watching Sandra carefully. But Marielle shook her head. "It can't wait, something came out online, a story, and it's spreading fast." Sandra felt the ground tilt. She had known something like this might happen eventually, but not tonight, not when she was already barely holding herself together. Her breathing quickened, and for a moment she forgot the lights, the cameras, everything except the sinking feeling in her chest. Keanu loosened his jaw, sensing her spiraling fear. "What kind of story?" he asked softly, though his tone carried a quiet firmness. Marielle hesitated, glancing at the sea of reporters only inches away. "I can't say here, too many ears." Sandra closed her eyes briefly. She knew exactly what that meant. It was bad, bad enough that her team feared the fallout instantly. The carpet around her grew blurry, her pulse loud in her ears. She felt exposed again, and this time the panic came faster. Keanu moved closer, steps gentle but decisive. "Sandra," he said, voice low, calm, steady. "Look at me again." She lifted her gaze, breathing unevenly. His expression wasn't pity, it was quiet strength, the kind that didn't demand anything from her. He angled his body slightly, shielding her from the closest cameras while still keeping the moment subtle, respectful. "You're not alone in this," he whispered. "Whatever it is, you won't face it by yourself." Something inside her cracked, not in a painful way, but in a way that loosened the fear gripping her ribcage. She swallowed, nodding slightly, drawing courage from the steadiness in his eyes. But the paparazzi were not done. As if sensing a story, they surged closer. "Is something wrong, Sandra? Keanu, are you too covering something? What's happening behind you?" Marielle stepped forward to block them, but the reporters were relentless. Sandra felt panic rising again, her hands trembling. This time it was harder to hide. Keanu noticed, and without hesitation, without caring how it would look, he lifted his hand and rested it gently on hers. The contact was warm, grounding, almost shockingly comforting. Sandra's breath steadied just enough to keep her upright. The cameras went wild, flashes bursting, shouts doubling, the entire carpet vibrating with speculation. But Keanu kept his focus only on her. "We'll walk," he said softly. "Together, I'm not letting you face that crowd alone." Sandra blinked, emotion flooding her chest. "Keanu, if you walk with me, they'll twist it." He gave a small, almost sad smile. "They twist everything anyway. At least this time you'll have someone beside you." Her heart threatened to break at the quiet sincerity in his voice. She didn't know how to respond. She only knew she didn't want him to let go. Before she could speak, Marielle's phone buzzed with another alert. She glanced at the screen, her face paling even further. Sandra felt a chill run down her spine. "What now?" she whispered. Marielle swallowed hard and looked up, eyes full of urgency. "It just got worse," she said. "A video just leaked, and it has your name all over it." Sandra's breath caught. Keanu's eyes narrowed. calm, protective, ready. And the moment Marielle showed him the screen, his expression changed in a way Sandra had never seen before. Because whatever he saw in that video wasn't just upsetting. It demanded a response. Keanu's eyes locked onto Marielle's phone, and for a moment the world around them narrowed to a single glowing screen. The noise of the red carpet faded. No shouting reporters, no flashing bulbs, just the three of them in a tense, suspended silence. Sandra watched Keanu's expression change. His calm features tightened, jaw shifting ever so slightly, the way it did when he saw something unfair or cruel. A quiet storm gathered behind his eyes, controlled but unmistakably fierce. "Show me," he said quietly. Marielle hesitated, then tilted the phone toward him and Sandra. And there it was, a video already spreading across social media. A short, chopped clip taken from earlier that day, twisted in a way that made Sandra look harsh toward a crew member she had actually tried to help. The edit was misleading, cruel, and designed to make her look like someone she was. Sandra's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh no, not this," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I was comforting him, they cut out everything. Keanu inhaled slowly, eyes still fixed on the screen. He watched it twice, jaw tightening, brow lowering. He didn't show anger, not the loud kind, but a quiet, razor-sharp protectiveness. The kind that came from knowing someone had been wronged. "They're framing you," he said, voice low, steady. "And they know exactly what they're doing." Sandra felt tears burning behind her eyes, not from guilt, but from helplessness. "I can't explain this out here, Keanu. They'll never believe me. They're already shouting, already twisting it." He lifted his gaze to her, not rushed, not panicked, just steady, warm, and fiercely loyal. "I believe you," he said. Something inside her loosened, trembling with relief. But the fear was still there. Fear of headlines, judgment, the sudden wave of negativity she knew would crash over her by morning. The paparazzi sensed something was wrong. Their questions sharpened like knives. "What's that video about, Sandra? Is it true? Why are you hiding behind Keanu? Keanu, is she in trouble?" Sandra's breath hitched again. Her mind raced, searching for a way to escape without collapsing in front of hundreds of lenses. Marielle leaned toward her. "We can get you out through the side entrance," she whispered, "but it'll look like you're running from the story." Sandra winced. "That's exactly what they'll say." Keanu's eyes scanned the crowd, reading the situation the way a strategist reads a battlefield. Then he turned back to Marielle. "No," he said softly but firmly. "She won't leave like she's guilty." His voice carried a quiet authority that made Marielle fall silent. Sandra looked at him with trembling confusion. "Then what do I do?" Keanu stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the steadiness of his presence, the calm warmth radiating from him like a shield. "You stand," he whispered, "and if you're not strong enough right now, then I'll stand with you." The words broke something inside her in the softest way. She didn't even realize a tear had slipped down her cheek until Keanu gently brushed it away with his thumb. Not romantic, not dramatic, just a simple human gesture filled with sincerity. But the moment his hand touched her face, the paparazzi erupted. "Keanu, are you two together? Is this a confirmation? Sandra, why are you crying? Tell us what's going on." Sandra tensed again, overwhelmed. Keanu sensed it instantly. He slid his hand down from her cheek and, without hesitation, took her hand instead, interlacing their fingers in full view of every camera. Sandra gasped softly. "Keanu, they're going to twist that too." He shook his head. "Good," he said quietly. "Then let them twist this, because at least it's real." The crowd roared with disbelief. This wasn't a pose. This wasn't for a movie. This was Keanu Reeves standing on a red carpet, openly, intentionally holding Sandra Bullock's hand in front of the world. But before Sandra could speak, before she could even react, the shouting from the reporters suddenly intensified. They weren't shouting at them anymore. They were shouting about something or someone approaching fast. Sandra turned her head, and her heart nearly stopped, because the person walking toward them through the flashing lights was the one person who could either fix this entire storm or make it explode beyond anything she could control. The shouting grew louder, sharper, almost confused. Reporters leaned forward, cameras raised high, all of them trying to capture the unexpected figure pushing through the crowd. Sandra felt Keanu's hand tighten gently around hers, steady, grounding, while her heart pounded against her ribs. The person approaching wasn't a celebrity, a critic, or someone chasing gossip. It was the young crew member from the video, the one Sandra had comforted earlier that day. He looked nervous, overwhelmed by the blinding flashes, but determined. His steps were shaky, yet he pushed forward until he reached the velvet rope. A security guard tried stopping him, but he held up his phone and spoke loudly enough for the reporters to hear. "I need to talk," he said. "You're all showing a fake story about her." The entire carpet froze. Sandra felt a rush of disbelief. She brought her free hand to her chest, trying to process what she was seeing. The young man looked directly at her, eyes sincere, grateful, and she realized he had come here because he understood what the edited video was doing to her. Keanu released a slow breath, relief flickering across his face. "Let him speak," he said quietly, and somehow, even in the chaos, people listened. The crew member stepped closer, voice shaking but full of urgency. "That video going around? It's a lie. She wasn't rude. She helped me. I had a panic moment on set. She was the only one who noticed." Reporters leaned in, dozens of microphones pushing forward. "What do you mean? Are you saying the clip is fake? Was the footage manipulated?" He nodded firmly. "Yes, they cut the part where she stopped everything to check on me. They cut the part where she told people to give me a minute. She protected me." Sandra's lips parted, emotion flooding her eyes. She didn't move, couldn't move. This wasn't someone hired, wasn't someone rehearsed. This was the truth, walking right into the fire just to defend her. He continued, louder now, braver. "She didn't do anything wrong. The edit is meant to hurt her, and I'm not letting that happen." The red carpet went silent. For the first time that night, the cameras didn't feel predatory. They felt like witnesses to something human, something real. Sandra looked at the young man, overwhelmed, unable to hold back the soft tears slipping from her eyes. Then she felt Keanu step slightly closer, still holding her hand, his voice gentle but full of pride. "You see," he murmured to her, "the truth always finds its way." Sandra swallowed hard. "I didn't think anyone would speak up." "People do," he said softly, "when kindness leaves a mark." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Even some reporters lowered their cameras for a moment, watching something unfold that no gossip headline could manufacture. Marielle exhaled with relief, wiping her forehead. "This changes everything," she whispered. But for Sandra, something else mattered more. She looked up at Keanu, her voice trembling but steady. "Thank you for not letting me face this alone." Keanu smiled, not a publicity smile, not a polished actor's smile, but something warm, tired, and deeply genuine. "You've stood by me in worse moments," he said. "Tonight it was my turn." And before she could respond, something happened that no one expected. The crowd erupted, not because of a scandal or a rumor, but because Keanu gently leaned in and pressed a brief, soft kiss to her forehead. A gesture of comfort, of solidarity, of quiet, unshakable loyalty. The cameras exploded in flashes. But for Sandra, everything slowed. She didn't feel exposed anymore. She didn't feel alone. She felt understood. The young crew member smiled, relieved. Marielle finally relaxed. The reporters lowered their tones. And Sandra, still holding Keanu's hand, took one steady step forward on the red carpet. This time, she didn't falter. Keanu walked beside her, matching her pace, giving her confidence without overshadowing her. The world watched the two of them move together, stronger, calmer, braver than how the night began. By the time they reached the end of the carpet, the storm that once threatened to break her had become the moment everyone would talk about for days. Not the twisted video, not the rumors, but this, a moment of truth, a moment of courage, a moment of two people choosing kindness in front of the world. And as they entered the venue, Sandra felt a soft warmth in her chest, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Maybe the world didn't expect this moment. But maybe it was exactly the one she needed.